Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for geekvibesnation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a Video Attic new release roundup. If you're new here, welcome. Kind of what we do here is we go back and forth talking about some of like the latest home video releases. Sometimes we're nice, sometimes we're a little catty, but it's all in good fun. We have a lot of fun. With that, I'm going to kick this party off over to my co-host, but before I do, we have another giveaway.
Yay.
So I'm really excited because I have a just one this time digital code for Clerks 3, and we both really liked that movie. I covered it like last week, so you can win a free digital code. And how you can do that is very simple. All you need to do is write in the comments what movie we cover that you most enjoyed, and that's it. You'll be entered to win that free digital code. So it's just that easy, and who doesn't like free stuff?
Absolutely. We're both big Kevin Smith fans, so all you got to do is just choose one from the plethora of titles we have at our disposal today. And on that note, I guess I'll kick it off. I want to just preface my selections by saying I am not paid off by Kino Lorber, but everything that I'm talking about is Kino Lorber this week. But I love them. I just went on a deep dive. So my first title is from 2010. It is a recent release called Oka, which is about I believe he's a British ethnomusicographer who has kind of like a pre-existing relationship with this African tribe. He is like years ago kind of became almost kind of like family with them, and he has kind of at the beginning he has like failing health a little bit, and he is kind of like mystically called back to like reunite with them. So it's basically the journey of him going back to this African tribe that he once knew and seeing how the developing world has kind of impacted the tribe, and it's like kind of pushing them out of their traditional living into kind of a more modern age, and how that's kind of clashing, and all kind of the struggles between the traditional like tribal elements with like kind of more modern sensibilities. And this is apparently based on a real life story, but I have not like looked into see how accurate it is. But overall, I did really like this movie. There are elements that I did. It is a white guy going into this African tribe, but I do like it because it's not like a white savior kind of complex necessarily. He is aware of the tribe and he respects their traditions and everything, and he even like falls in love with one of the like members of the tribe. But it is kind of a little weird that it is more so centered on this white protagonist and his place within this tribe. So I found the more interesting story to be the members of the African tribe and kind of how they are living with things, as opposed to the dealings with this white protagonist. It's handled well, and like I understand that it is kind of from more that a true story, like this is his experiences with this tribe aspect. I just found myself longing to like focus a little bit more on the other tribes member, but they didn't do it in like a totally gross way. So like overall they did a good job. I just personally I found the more like other members of the tribe more interesting. But it is a good movie. There's like some good like dramatic tension to it, and it's not. It doesn't feel like sanitized Hollywood like glossy type stuff. It's a good movie. So this new Blu-ray, this kind of reminds me of a movie you talked about several months ago called Passion in the Desert,
Hmm.
which is like a weird movie about a man and a tiger. But this kind of has like a similar vibe to it, and the restoration kind of reminded me of the same. Like it's a little bit gritty and kind of a little like worse for wear, like around the edges, but overall it looks nice. It has a fairly solid transfer. There's just like little like nicks and specks here and there, but overall it's a pretty solid transfer. The audio sounds good, and there is a 52-minute making of documentary, which kind of rounds out the package. Other than that, there's no real special features, but that's a pretty substantial special feature on its own. So if you are interested in this type of story, Oka, it's a pretty solid watch. I actually watched it like right after I watched The Woman King, and that was like totally different vibes with still African like nations. So it's a try that double feature out for yourself. Maybe you'll like it as well. But yeah, Kino Lorber keeps bringing us kind of hidden gems of the indie scene. So I appreciate that.
Nice. Yeah, that is one that was definitely not on my radar, but definitely sounds very interesting. So I might have to check that out. My next one is definitely less obscure, is probably one of the best pieces of television last year. That's really saying something. And that is the Staircase, which was a limited series from HBO. And as you can see, we do have some featurettes, which is really nice. We both love when a studio doesn't just dump it out. So and yeah, I mean, definitely just be like see that already kind of came loose. So just be super careful. That broke, but yeah, so the Staircase is fantastic. Have you seen it?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I don't even know like where to begin. I mean, I love how layered it is. I really love how you know, it tells a story of the true crime, but then it's like layered with the making of the documentary series called The Staircase, and kind of like the aftermath of like the trial, the effect that everything had on the document, like having the documentary crew there. Surprisingly, like the documentary crew actually play like a pretty big role in this, which again is really interesting, and it's a nice angle to take it in, because it's not just like, okay, this is what happened leading up to the crime and then the trial and everything. We get that extra depth, which I think is fascinating. And I mean, again, every aspect of the show really works. The writing, it's just very engaging. It's I like how they kind of like play with different scenarios of like how like the titular Staircase murder kind of happened. If it was murder, if it was an accident, maybe it was an owl.
Yeah.
It's so funny because like when I was like saying to my husband that like there was like this theory about an owl being the murderer, like he thought it was ridiculous, and then he watched this and was like, what the actual hell? Like, so I don't know, it's kind of a wild theory, but there's some people that's subscribe to that, and but it's fine. But what like, I just love how everything is just kind of like thrown in there, but in a way that is very smart and engaging. Colin Firth is really great in this. I actually looked up trivia, and I found out that Harrison Ford was originally going to play Michael Peterson.
Wow.
And I like like that was IMDb trivia, which is always a little suspect, but I found a couple sources, like credible sources, that said that he was actually going to play that role. And I love Harrison Ford, but I don't see him fitting that role.
Yeah, I think Colin Firth, he did a really excellent job as Michael Peterson, and just he brought a special added layer to it that I think really helped with. I, I don't know. I don't think Harrison Ford it was kind of built to inhabit that.
Yeah, just also it's just like it's a very daring role because he's, it comes out that he is gay, that he like kind of a little bit of what they demonized in the trial was, his you know, proclivities for male escorts or um I don't know, like like whatever euphemism you want to use, but
Yeah.
yeah, so I just don't see like Harrison Ford kind of like going for like a role like that. But yeah, and of course Toni Collette is a goddess, amazing. Love her. She's amazing in this, of course. Um she doesn't get a lot of like time to shine, but when she does, man, she is so good. So yeah, everything about the series is fire. There's not a single aspect that I feel is rushed or haphazardly sort of thrown together. Now I'm if you're curious, if you need to see the documentary first before seeing the limited series, I would say you don't necessarily have to, but it would really help give you a lot of context, especially some of like the behind the scenes drama of the making of the original documentary within this series. It's kind of like an Inception sort of
Yeah.
level of stuff going on. But yeah, it's great. And again, I like how the Owl Theory has its own featurette, which is great. But yeah, so if you haven't seen this, definitely check it out. I am really happy that Warner Brothers put this out. Correct, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but this does not have a Blu-ray. This is DVD only.
That's correct.
So yeah, with stuff appearing and disappearing off the HBO Max platform, uh you should definitely own it. And that way you don't have to worry about it maybe not being there someday. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So just I echo that. Physical media fans, like, just be secure in the fact that you own something and then it won't disappear off your shelf. It might disappear from HBO Max, but they're not going to come into your house and take it off your shelf. My next title is from Kino Classics. It is Sergeant Ryker, which is a really interesting movie. It kind of reminds me a little bit. It's kind of like a precursor to like A Few Good Men almost, and I guess this does have reversible cover art, which I like this. It's a colorful cover art here. And it stars Lee Marvin, and as a soldier who is on trial, he is accused of a crime that it's kind of unclear if he really committed it, why he committed it, if he did, under like certain orders. So it's kind of like that kind of layered military drama where there's questions about protocol and chain of command and all that type of stuff. And Lee Marvin, he does a really great job as a kind of an uncooperative prisoner who's like doesn't really feel like he necessarily needs to fight for justice because he's kind of like given up hope in the system, and he's just kind of feels that he's kind of resigned to the fact that he's probably going to be like railroaded and everything until he gets in line with a lawyer who there's like all this kind of drama with like the lawyer and his wife, like the Lee Marvin's wife, and like kind of like romantic stuff there. So there's kind of like some interesting interweaving of like personal lives and courtroom drama and all this stuff. And overall, I really like it. It's pretty much strictly a courtroom drama. There's not really any much like flashbacks to like war or anything like that. It's just Lee Marvin on trial and just kind of the complexities within that trial. And overall, I really liked it. I think Lee Marvin really holds it all together. He does a good job, but all the rest of the cast are also solid as well. It's only 85 minutes, so it's not overly long. It kind of kept my attention throughout, and it's just like it's a really well done, solid drama. This is from 1968, and so it's not too sanitized or anything, but it's just a solid, well made drama from the 60s. And this is from a new 2K master, and it looks really nice. There's still a few little specs here and there, but overall, it's a really nice, cleaned up master. It sounds pretty good as well. There's not too much strain on the audio. There is a audio commentary track from film historian Daniel Kramer, and then just some trailers and everything. But at least it has a commentary track to kind of put it all into perspective. So overall, if you love a good courtroom drama or like military dramas, Sergeant Ryker really impressed me. I quite enjoyed it. So pick it up next time you're perusing the Kino Lorber wares, because they have a lot of good stuff over there.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny. I was like actually just thinking about like having like a Lee Marvin thon sometime. So that definitely seems like it needs to be on my list for that. So this is one that I kind of just picked based on the title. Um it's called My Donkey, My Lover, and I. And as you can
Yeah.
see, there's the donkey. There's the donkey with shenanigans. So I actually liked this movie, but at first I did not. It was a little bit of a struggle. The premise is basically a school teacher of she's having an affair with the father of a student that she's teaching, which is I was gonna say pretty gross, but I mean it's a little cringe. But she so like the husband that she's having an affair with like goes off on holiday, and she feels rejected. She essentially stalks him um at this like very picturesque like little village, which seems really creepy and very desperate. But thankfully they sort of like break her away from that storyline, and she becomes more independent. She starts dating some other men. Her character arc really comes around after that, and um she has this like really cute affinity for this donkey that she bonds with. And a lot of times there'll be scenes where she will like confess things to the donkey. It's sort of her like therapist in a way. So yeah, like I said, it was a little bit of a struggle. The first act was a lot, but thankfully they do kind of smooth out some of the more maybe kind of toxic threads. And it helped me connect more with her as a character, because they really do give her a nice arc at the end. So yeah, this is definitely one. It doesn't have any features, but I will say this looks awful on DVD, and I don't often like say that. I know it's very spicy, but I
Yeah.
think I'm coming in so hot because the locales are so beautiful and like just stunning looking. But the DVD upconvert, it just looks really like just unflattering. It just like this is a movie that I would like happily own on Blu-ray. But yeah, it's just very rough looking. You can tell that there's not the kind of sharp detail. Like things are very just lackluster in definition. Which again, I mean, like that kind of gives you an idea of like just the beautiful vistas that they showcase, but it's all just wasted on DVD. And again, I hate talking crap, because this is Kino and Greenwich, and love them. I just wish that this could get a Blu-ray release. But the movie's good. If you have a chance to check it out, I don't know if there's like a higher definition somehow you can see, but the DVD is just lacking for me.
Yeah, you can like stream it or buy it digitally, which is like and the antithesis of our show talking about physical media. But I too was disappointed that Greenwich didn't put that out on Blu-ray because they're kind of hit or miss on like what they choose to put out on Blu-ray. But I'm just like, just do it for us. Like, just do this for us as collectors because I agree the locales definitely deserve to be seen in high definition. So that was a bit of a disappointment. But I do also I enjoy the movie and I echo pretty much what you said about it. It's charming once you like kind of get more into it and like once you get to that donkey, it's good. It's good. But my next title is Warning Shot, which is kind of similar in tone to my previous title. There's no reversible cover art here, just normal disc here. So this stars David Jansen here. And he plays a cop who is like kind of involved in a shooting and but it's like kind of a questionable shooting type thing where he is put on trial by the public, your trial of public opinion, and like kind of it seems like all the kind of obstacles are against him. Like all these sources are kind of saying that he did something wrong, but he knows that he didn't just do anything wrong and is kind of out to kind of clear his name on actually what happened. So it kind of goes down this kind of tapestry of like criminal elements and kind of shadowy figures of just like clearing his name, figuring out who stands to benefit from like his name being dirt basically and him being like kind of set up for this crime. So like in the modern culture of just like with like police and all that stuff, it's interesting to like see such like a very like pro police piece of filmmaking, which a lot of especially old Hollywood filmmaking was like this. But I think it does good for what it is. I just want to like point out that it is very like police excellent, good job. Like, don't doubt them; they are on the right side of good. So if you're not into that, stay away. But it is an intriguing mystery, and I think it's really kind of constructed really well. There's a lot of good twists and turns. It maintains a good pace. It's an hour and 40 minutes, and I don't really felt like it dragged in too many places. I think it kind of pretty much kept the momentum throughout. And there's some good like kind of like ensemble character pieces that it's a really good solid cast. So this is comes from a 2K scan of the interpositive, and it looks really nice. It once again maybe some like little specks and scratches here and there, but it's like you can definitely tell it's been cleaned up. The audio is pretty solid as well, and this has a film like a audio commentary track from film historian Steve Mitchell and Howard S. Berger. So both of those, they collaborate for a commentary track, once again, to give like some historical context, learn more about the actors, so the period of time that this film was made, kind of how it like interacted with the social values of the time, stuff like that. So it's a good time. It's once again another solid piece of 60s filmmaking. This was 67, so I had never heard of this, but I enjoyed it. So Warning Shot, once again, Kino. Most of these are just Kino just bringing gems up to me and just being like, oh, that's good. Thank you for putting that out. So good stuff. This is from their deal with Paramount. So glad they're digging into that back catalog.
Nice. Speaking of like shows, I was earlier talking about The Staircase, and I got another series that unlike The Staircase, I kind of wasn't sure if I was gonna vibe with, but I actually ended up really liking it, and that is Reacher season 1. And there we go. This does have some like a couple featurettes. And inside and then you can kind of see like it has like this stacked discs which isn't my favorite, but I probably like it a little better than like the gatefold discs. But
Hmm.
yeah, so yeah, this is another one that again I really wasn't kind of sure about. But I actually found it really interesting. Like I was expecting probably like not like the engaging sort of mystery that it presents. That was a nice surprise. But yeah, this show definitely has a really good blend of action, a lot of really nice twists and turns. There is some humor in it that I think sometimes lands, sometimes feels a little sitcom-y. Um, but wow, I was also not expecting this to be as graphic as it was. You've seen this, right?
Yeah, I reviewed the Blu-ray last month, and I think it's a lot of fun. I haven't seen the Tom Cruise Jack Reacher movies,
Hmm.
but I this guy does such a good job. He's such like an imposing figure, and just to see him like on this kind of throughout this season, like kind of going through this slow burn mystery, I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it can get pretty graphic.
Yeah, like the in particular the chief of police's murder was like when I was watching it and taking notes, I wrote something like this could easily be on Hannibal.
Yeah.
Which that's fine. But just be aware that, this does get kind of down and dirty. Like there's a whole like prison fight that's pretty intense at the beginning. So yeah, but what surprised me was Reacher, they do a good job, I think, making him complex, giving him some depth, um, giving him like real motivation. They're not afraid to sort of be a little bit sentimental with that character. And I think it's a nice balance. It's not just like, okay, he's like this one man army that's like bulldozing everything. Like he does kind of have some complexity under all those muscles and stuff. So yeah, so but also it does sort of allow itself to revel in that sort of 80s throwback action. But again, it reinvents it in a way that's a little bit more like complex and interesting, and the side characters are just as interesting, I think, as Reacher. So again, that's nice because they don't sideline characters, for the titular character. And I won't spoil the ending, but it does resolve in a way that I feel is very satisfying while also sort of like setting up maybe a second season, which I think it's getting a second season for sure.
I believe so. Yeah, I think it's coming out in the next few months, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. So yeah, I'm excited.
Um yeah, so I think that this is great. I am happy that we got some featurettes. Again, it's just nice to have it on Blu-ray. And anything else is sort of like icing on the cake. So definitely worth checking out. It's not a particularly like vibrant, bright, colorful looking show, but I think it translates very well to Blu-ray. So I think it's very much worth picking up if you've only kind of seen it on streaming, or if you haven't streamed it yet, I would say pick up the Blu-ray for sure.
Yeah. And if you're a really big fan of it, there is actually a manufactured on demand 4K version of this. So you can
Mm,
really go all out in like best
nice.
quality and stuff. So just throwing that out there. It's not like you won't find it in like retail, like normal retail stores, but you can get it online if you're interested. Going to my next keynote title, I'm staying in the realm of television, but it's very throwback television. This is from 1960, and I'm pretty much guaranteed to butcher this name. Maigret, Maigret.
Maigret.
It's from a French character. So season 1 of it from BBC, and this is 3 discs and 13 episodes. And I will kind of show this off a little bit. So you have the back cover art here, and so same, and got one, so yeah, same disc art on everything, and you just have a little quick episode guide here so you can check out the episodes, and then a little thing about the restoration, which I'll get into in just a second. So this is basically kind of just your typical procedural detective show from back in the day. Like, you get the lead detective played by Rupert Davies. He gets kind of clued into, like, every episode gets clued into like a crime and kind of just does like an investigation type thing, just your normal type of stuff. But he is a very interesting like character himself. He's not as gritty as someone like Rocco Schiavone, who we talked about with the Ice Cold Murders in recent years. But for this time in the 60s, he is kind of like your archetypal, like he's a little bit like plays by his own rules, that type of stuff. And he's just a really good detective, and he's like written, has clever lines. It's all a fairly engaging time. It's, with this being from the 60s, it's nothing too groundbreaking or anything. And like some of the kind of plots are a little bit more dull than others, but overall I found it pretty interesting. There is like some like amount of like boundary pushing in terms of like talking about like basically like call girls or prostitutes or anything, and just kind of allusions to stuff that you're like, okay, this, for being in BBC in the 60s, that's kind of interesting. But not groundbreaking, but it's fine television if you're into like kind of that classic like old school procedural storytelling. It's a pretty engaging time throughout these 13 episodes. One thing about this Blu-ray is anyone who is particularly familiar with BBC programming being like, especially old school BBC programming being transported to the US, you will understand based on like kind of the technology that it's not going to look amazing just because of like frame conversion rates and like how it's filmed and the conditions of how things were stored at the time. Not always great. This is newly restored from the original televideo elements, it says. And even the little disclaimer on the restoration notes say that there are still like issues that they couldn't quite fix with this. And the whole video kind of seems, just like the way it has to be presented, kind of seems kind of like almost like you're like watching a dream sequence and something else. It's a little like kind of like fuzzy and soft a little bit. But the fact that this is kind of like a forgotten era of BBC and that they've rescued it, I can kind of give them a little bit of leeway to just know like these episodes are never going to look incredible by today's standards, but they made these look as good as they could with like de-interlacing stuff and like trying to reassemble. It's processes far beyond my comprehensions of exactly how they had to do this, but overall, I think it's a really solid representation for this series. The sound is also pretty good. There's like some pops here and there, like a little bit of like humming in some spots, but overall, this is about as good as you could hope for from a series of this vintage of this time, like from this network. And there's not real other special features besides just like a specific featurette on the restoration itself. But overall, if you're a fan of old BBC television shows, you should check this out. There's a second season coming this month as well that I'll also be reviewing once I'm able to get through it. But overall, it's good, not groundbreaking, but it's an interesting artifact that I appreciated.
Nice. That actually segues pretty nicely into my first well, I guess my donkey was technically Kino, but this is Kino Studio Classics, and that is John Sturges' The Hallelujah Trail. which was quite something. Have you seen this one?
Yes, I'm. There's a couple I watched right around the same time that are kind of similar. That's the one that's like it's about like 2.5 hours long, right? It's pretty
Yeah,
long, isn't it?
it's it's a
Yeah,
long movie.
yeah,
So I like the but what made me think of that is like you were talking about kind of relics, and this I think is certainly a Hollywood relic. I think it was even sort of that way in 1965.
yeah.
But anyways, the idea of like a big budget absurd comedy satire of the Western genre, I think is an inherently interesting one. But it just does not work. Which is a shame because this has such a great cast. Burt Lancaster, Lee Remick, Donald Pleasance is in it and has like he's a delightfully weird character, of course. But yeah, I will say the problem is the humor. It's a wildly uneven. Some jokes land very well, others are just very corny or awkward. The other big thing, of course, is the pacing. This movie does not need to be an epic.
No.
It's such a shame. The movie itself is beautiful looking. I think it's one of those like Vista, like ultra widescreen filmed, and it looks like fantastic. Like it is filmed like this just grand epic of the West. That doesn't really necessarily match sort of like the content and tone and isn't even really getting into like how Native Americans are portrayed, which I feel like even in 65 we should have like known better or just tried to do a little bit better, but
Yeah.
um
Is
yeah
that the one with Donald Pleasance and Brownface?
yeah you definitely have some of that in this movie, which is very cringy. And yeah, I if you still like this movie, no judgment. I just think that that's really uncomfortable. But yeah, I mean, I definitely understand what they're going for. I mean, a lot of people kind of compare it to maybe like it's a mad world. I don't know if
Mm.
that's as many mads as you need, but something like that. Or like Rat Race or like these other movies that like had a really big ensemble cast and was kind of like zany hijinks. But yeah, this just does not work. It was pretty legendary bomb as well. I think it was like made on a $7 million budget, but only made like 4 million. So it is kind of fascinating to hear the commentary track by Michael Schwartzinger and C. Courtney Joyner. Not sure if I'm saying that right. Sorry. But I know like Courtney is awesome. I've talked to him a few times and he's like a big Western expert. So the commentary track is really entertaining, dare say more than the movie itself. But I will say, like any good commentary track, it kind of helped me appreciate the movie a little bit more, like in hindsight. But yeah, it's too much of an awkward kind of push and pull. It's a shame because I love these actors. In particular, I love Lee Remick. I think she's such a fascinating actor. So yeah, it's disappointing. I would just say if you want something similar that's better, Blazing Saddles obviously is I think what they were maybe kind of aiming for, but just didn't have that kind of I don't know, like I don't know. It's weird because it's like it's cringy and offensive without really like fully committing to it, like a Mel Brooks thing where that's part of the satirical charm of it.
Mhm.
It's just cringy because it's so earnest in its awful depictions of Native American people. So yeah, check it out, I guess, if you're curious and you like these actors, but it is very long. It's very dry. Again, it's weird because it's very sincere in some parts, but it's very zany and wacky in others, and um all of that just doesn't translate into something kind of coherent. But um yeah, it is what it is. It's probably something I wouldn't watch again, but yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was not aware of the tone of that going in. I thought it was going to be more of a straightforward Western. I was like,
Yeah.
what is going on? But that unfortunately kind of segues pretty nicely into my next title of just doesn't really work. And that is Ghost Warrior with Hiroshi Fujioka. And this is from 1986. And this, I really like the packaging of this, and I believe this does have, yeah, double-sided cover art. So there's the normal cover art, and then the reversible cover art is here. So that, and then the disc art is just your normal Kino gray with the writing on it. So there. So yeah, so this is from 1986. Despite starring Fujioka, this is an American production, because it's this is just kind of like the high concept, like kind of type of movie in the 80s where they were just like, I don't know, what about this? And you're just like, okay, sure, like, let's see where this goes. But it's like he plays a samurai back in like kind of feudal Japan era, and through it's like basically through reasons, through like magic or whatever, he is preserved in time perfectly until he is awoken in the modern day of the 80s. So it's like a fish out of water, a samurai from feudal Japan, like awoken in present day 1980s America. What will happen and stuff, and like with no like grasp of the English language or like the customs. So it's kind of like you get to see like this samurai just trying to figure out his place in the world, and kind of coming across just like a bunch of different kind of usually criminals in modern day America. So him just running into like street toughs that they're like trying to like mock him and like intimidate him, and he just of course does his samurai stuff and just dispatches with them. And you're like, okay. So this is inherently kind of a campy movie just by the premise alone, and the film doesn't really do anything with it. He kind of forms some kind of friendship with the woman that kind of just basically discovered him, but then there's also, she has a partner who is not into things for like altruistic reasons, and he's kind of like takes on a villainous role. So it kind of plays out exactly how you would expect like an 80s movie about a samurai in modern America to play out. It's kind of like has a little bit of action, lots of humor, and it's just kind of fumbles its way towards the end, I guess. It's just like, if you find that premise hilarious, you might enjoy this, but it kind of like, it's a kind of a more of a one joke movie that kind of wears out its welcome pretty quickly. You're like, oh look, he's not like us, and it's just okay. And then like all of the Japanese parts are not subtitled, like intentionally so, because they didn't really care about what this character was saying back in the 80s. So like if you turn on the subtitles that are provided on the disc, it would just be like, speaks Japanese, and it's just like, okay. So they never really cared about what this character was like. It was more like, yes, you get to see him like emoting and you kind of understand stuff, but they just didn't really even care enough to like make these like even the pre time jump stuff back in feudal Japan, like there's just no subtitles for the Japanese people speaking. You just like kind of see them going about their business. So I find that kind of weird, but whatever. There is an audio commentary track from Brandon Bentley and Mike Leader. There's also there's an interview with the special effects makeup artists, and then like an array of trailers. So I don't think this is from like a new scan or anything. So it's kind of an older scan. It kind of looks it, but it's not terrible. It's fine. It does the job, but it's like it could look better. Um, and like I said, there's a couple special features. So I don't really recommend it, but if you like cheesy 80s action, like action comedy movies with like not that much action, but a little bit, go for it, have fun. But out of all the titles I'm talking about this week, I would probably say this is the weakest. So just be aware. It's not great, but it'll probably hold some kind of appeal to like the people who like Mystery Science Theater 3000 who just want to make fun of it.
Yeah. That's a great cover though.
Yeah. I do like the cover.
So there was no ghosts in it, right?
There's not. It's a ghost of the past.
Oh, boo. um, so my next one was a really interesting discovery, and that's what kind of gets me excited doing this show, which is getting to discover, these really weird offbeat kind of titles. And so my next one is Alma's Rainbow. And have you seen this one?
I have not yet. No, I'm looking forward to it though.
Okay, so we were talking about tone and how jarring that can be. So probably something good to know about this is it is very tonally weird. Like I'll try best to describe it. But it's really something to kind of see. But anyways, this is kind of a quirky story of a teenager who wants to be a star, and she's kind of encouraged by her kooky aunt. And again, this oh my gosh, I almost said show. This movie, again, tonally is very, very weird because you'll have very naturalistic, grounded stories of this, girl who's kind of coming into womanhood, and it has a lot of really interesting things to say about female autonomy, and agency and where one fits in the world. But then it'll have a singing montage in a funeral home, which
Okay.
is very weird. And I mentioned those two things because again, tonally, it's just very strange because on the one hand, it is this very beautiful, grounded story of this I say girl, but girl to woman kind of trying to navigate this world that seems very strange. And in that regards, I think it's a really great film. But it just bucks up against this very surreal, almost not quite maybe Lynchian moments, but maybe Lynch adjacent stuff going on, which again, that disconnect for some people might be something that kind of like turns them off. For some people that might be a feature, not a bug. It certainly makes it interesting and it makes it stand out, but honestly, I kind of wish I would have just been in this more grounded world telling this kind of story. Like, I'm not saying that I don't think it's not that I don't think you can tell a story like that and use kind of surreal moments or imagery, but I don't know if it very successfully works here. Like having it all kind of come together. But yeah, I mean, especially I believe this is a feature film debut, so it's even more kind of impressive when you consider that. It is very gritty, and it almost kind of has like a Spike Lee sort of feel at times, but again, it also sort of feels like you splash a little bit of like John Waters or, you know, yeah, it's kind of strange, but I liked it. I thought it was really worthwhile to check out. What's nice is this also has a disc of short films. So yeah, very much worth checking out, but just be aware that it tonally it is just very maybe off-putting if you're not used to that. Like I'm used to stuff where it can just go very weird and even nonsensical. And it's not nonsensical, but like if you're not kind of prepared for something that is that tonally whiplash inducing, it might be something that could put you off to the film. But if you know that going in, you can kind of be prepared for it. I think it's ultimately it's a really good film, especially as a feature film debut. It's very impressive. It's just a little rough around the edges, but good.
Awesome. Yeah, I even after you hearing you say that, that does seem like it'd be probably right up my alley. So I'm very much looking forward to that one. So I'll have to get to that soon. So my next title is from with Bob Hope and Lucille Ball. This is Fancy Pants. So got both of them here. And here. So a little bit about me. I'm not the biggest Bob Hope fan. He kind of gets on my nerves and just issues, but I do like some of his movies. I've reviewed some of his Warner Archive titles that were fine, but usually I find the ensemble around him kind of buoys my interest in most of his stuff. And that was mostly the reason I kind of sought this one out, because I do love Lucille Ball, and I'm a big fan of I Love Lucy and all of her other like Lucy derivatives and everything, and also just her in movies in general. I've kind of tried to seek her out wherever I can, and she did a lot of movies with Bob Hope. There's another one coming out in a month or two from Kino Classics, so hopefully I'll just keep getting more of those so I can get my Lucy collection complete. But overall, I would say this is a decent movie. I wish there was more Lucy. It is pretty focused on Bob, but he plays an out of work actor who kind of takes an opportunity of like mistaken identity to as a kind of a British like basically teacher who kind of like teaches manners and all that type of stuff, like how to be proper and fancy and everything. They bring him in for Lucille Ball's character, who's more like tomboyish and doesn't really kind of adhere to conventions and stuff. So she's always teasing him and calling him fancy pants and all that stuff. So it's kind of like a case of mistaken identity and opposites attract type stuff. And then there's also a plot point near the end where like the president becomes involved because the president is coming to dinner. So like high stakes are like introduced because like high society type stuff. It's a whole like interesting journey. But overall, it's fairly amusing. It's like humorous in some points, and then there's like some musical moments that are fairly decent. And it's not my least favorite Bob Hope turn by any stretch of the imagination, but it's mostly just fine. So this picture, it mostly looks really great. It's a remaster from Paramount. It's a 4K scan of the 35 millimeter original Technicolor elements. And with Technicolor, things can often like, because you're dealing with 3 strips, you have to make like sure that all 3 are like properly preserved and like conformed and all that type of stuff. And pretty much throughout, it's almost flawless. But I did notice at least one scene where it just kind of like went to hell for like 2 seconds and then like came back, and you're like, oh, okay, that must have been just like a really bad element that they could not restore. So I don't want to like indicate that this is a flawless transfer. There's like some damage that they were not able to correct. But for the most part, it looks really nice. And like I do love Technicolor movies on Blu-ray. They always make like look really nice and vibrant and everything. And this is whenever they're restored well, it looks really good. And this is mostly restored pretty well. There's actually no other special features besides trailers on here, which is a little bit disappointing. I would have liked a commentary track, but you get like the 4K scan. And so overall, if you're here for the movie, it's a pretty solid presentation. If you've never seen it before, pick it up if you're a fan of either. If you're not a fan of either, probably not a lot going for it here, but it's a decent time for fans. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I know it's going to be, I think, a pretty good year for Lucy fans. We're also getting was it the big trailer?
Oh yeah. From Warner Archive. Yeah, that's coming
which
soon.
have you seen that one? That's a lot of
I have
fun.
not. No, I'm excited.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. So my next title is just a dramatic switch. And that is House of Terrors from Mondo Macabro. And it's the back. This does not have reversible cover art, but yeah, so this is kind of interesting because I know last week I talked about another Mondo title where it was like a really interesting fusion of different sort of like Japanese horror conventions. And this actually is a Japanese horror take on the old Dark House formula, which was pretty interesting. So pretty much probably everybody knows what that means, but it's basically a single location horror, typically set in a mansion. There's usually a mystery that's unfolding among the guests. Usually the supernatural elements that occur are not really going on. They're just machinations for whatever villainry is going on. But I think it could also be actual supernatural elements and still be considered an old Dark House movie. I am by no means an expert, so if you are, chime in and let me know in the comments. But yeah, so anyways, this is a really interesting, kind of cool movie. First of all, like it is chocked full of fantastic atmosphere, and just despite some like plot holes, there are some really interesting twists and turns. You have a lot of like really crazy characters. You have a hunchback caretaker. You have a creepy father-in-law that is trying to get with the his like daughter-in-law, and it's really skin crawling. Like it's very overt that he like is interested in her. So I don't want to spoil how that outcome happens, but there's a lot of like blackmailing, there's like murder, there's really strange stuff going on. Again, I'm trying to be kind of vague because I don't want to spoil any of the plot points, but I love how it kind of just starts very simple and then everything just builds and escalates and just stuff is creepy and unsettling. And that's just that's just some of the characters. That's not even to mention like what's going on like horror wise. But yeah, so it's a lot of fun. I definitely think that it's something that I would probably watch again, especially knowing like some of the twists and the outcomes. It's by no means the most coherent plot. There's a lot of times when you have to kind of fill in some of the plot details because the screenwriters didn't. But overall, it's pretty fun. This looks really good. This comes from a brand new 2K scan. And while it's not flawless, it certainly looks great, especially for a movie from 1965. Like Mondo always provides what I consider really great work. Not only just like finding these obscure films, but making them look great, sound great. We do have some features that I think kind of help put the movie in its proper context, both culturally and like historically. So yeah, it's a lot of over the top fun if you like kind of like weird old dark house kind of movies, but with a Japanese horror kind of flair. Definitely give this a watch.
Yeah, that one at least sounds more promising to me than last week's
Then the
haunted
Turkish,
Turkish bathhouse.
yeah, yeah, I could definitely see you connecting with this a lot more. It's not as, it does have some like cringy stuff, but it's not quite as like overt and in your face as a haunted Turkish bathhouse is.
Yeah, I'll consider it. I'll at least consider it. You kind of got me intrigued. I liked what I was hearing, so we'll see how it goes. My final title, this is one of, I think I'm ending more on a high note. I quite enjoyed this, and this is from 1986, and this is No Mercy with Richard Gere and Kim Basinger, and
Oh.
I I do love me some Kim Basinger, and I do also like Richard Gere as well. So this one, I was excited when this was announced because I had never seen it, and no reversible cover art. But this, if you kind of like 80s, kind of not even really dumb action movies, but 80s action movies, like pretty well made 80s action movies. This one's a really good one. This is Richard Gere as a police detective who, at the beginning of the film, he and his partner are going undercover with to kind of hook up with Kim Basinger's character and like a guy that she knows. And in the process, both the guy that she knows and his partner both get killed, and uh, Richard Gere, his cop character, kind of tries to avenge his partner's death by like going after Kim Basinger's character, only to realize she herself is a victim of this other more kind of evil kind of crime figure who she's kind of been like basically like a slave to since she was like a young teenager. So there's some darker elements to this, but they end up kind of hooked up with one another and kind of become like unlikely allies throughout, and they kind of like discover a little bit more about each other. So it's kind of like that kind of like enemies to lovers type trope, but it's done really well. And like I really like the journey that they take of just like they're on the run from this criminal figure, both for different reasons, but also like not really on the same side as one another for most of the movie, and then kind of how that evolves. There's some good action, really good like kind of like exchanges of like banter between the both of them. There's like some really amusing things between them, some like steamy moments between them, and I don't know. It just really hit that kind of section of my brain that really likes like 80s movies that aren't like too ridiculous or over the top, but are just kind of like solidly made, and just like you don't really get a lot of those anymore. So it's just kind of like fun to just see like these stars of the 80s just like doing really great work acting wise, and the script not really leaving too much to be desired. It's not like a classic or anything, but it's just a solidly entertaining movie in my opinion. So this Blu-ray, it does not seem to come from a new scan from what I can tell from what is said here, but overall I think the master that they were working with that is older is in really good shape for the most part. I didn't see any like horrible instances of like damage or anything. And like what is like the little like specks that are here and there, or maybe like some soft shots here and there, are not really a deal breaker for me. Like there are some things that probably could be improved, but overall, pretty solid transfer, and the sound's really great. And you get a interview with actor Jaron Crabb, and that is all. There's not a commentary track for this one, but you do get an actor interview, so it's not bare bones. So they do a little bit of effort. So if you're a fan of these two, recommended. If you're a fan of that era in filmmaking, recommended. And if you're a fan of slipcovers, get early so you can get it. So overall, pretty solid movie. So good way to end that for my portion of things.
Yeah, if I'm recalling this correctly, Mill Creek put this out a while back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I just remember it being very sweaty. It's a very sweaty movie, right?
Yeah, I think it's set in New Orleans, so you get a lot of
Yeah.
swamp stuff and like gators and all that type of stuff.
But yeah, I remember it being pretty decent. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see if like that's maybe the same transfer. But yeah, I remember it being a pretty good movie. So my final title is one it's kind of hard to talk about just because rule of thumb, I never try to divulge more than what's on the back of the cover. So there's an element of the movie that makes it kind of a little too goofy, but it's hard to actually say that without spoiling it, so I'll do my best. So my next title is The Blood Beast Terror. And
I like that cover.
Yeah, it's a good it kind of looks like Christopher Lee though.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. I was like, did they put the wrong name on the cover? Because
Yeah. So here we go. This does have reversible art, which is pretty cool. I like that.
mm-hmm.
I think I kind of like that a little bit more than the other cover, but yeah, so this is one of those movies that again, this was like in the 60s. I've had a lot of 60s movies this week, but it is a very curious entry in the late kind of 60s British horror. So this for me checks a lot of boxes. I love mad scientist movies. It's a creature feature. It has Peter Cushing. And while it's not Hammer, it really does have sort of a period Hammer horror feel to it. So without spoiling anything, I will say that there is a creature in this that I was very like, am I having a fever dream that this is like our creature? But no, in fact, what we get is what we get, and the movie is in this really awkward place because it is a little tongue in cheek, but it is played very seriously. It has no irony. There's no like winking at the camera. Like
Mm-hmm.
they are playing this like it's the royal, Shakespearean company. And Cushing is really doing his best to kind of sell this menace. And it's a little like kind of unintentionally funny at times. But what I will say, like the movie it does have a lot of that classic kind of Hammer-esque sort of atmosphere. The acting is very stylized, like a lot of these like older horror movies. But yeah, it's just not very good. I found it a little bit boring. I wasn't connecting with the story. I wasn't connecting with the characters. I think that you could enjoy this in a so bad it's maybe good variety, but yeah. Again, the creature in it is so laughable. Like it you were talking about Mystery Science Theater. This would be kind of essential like Mystery Science Theater fodder in my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if the movie played a little bit more up its sort of campy elements had a little bit more fun with it. I'm not saying you can't take elements of it seriously, but like it's just too dry. It's too like it's too clinical. It does not have any kind of fun with its like admittedly very silly creature. So it is unique, I will say that. And I do really like Cushing in this. So if those are elements that intrigue you, I think you should check it out. This does come from a 2012 2K scan. It looks really nice. There's a lot of beautiful kind of countryside photography that looks beautiful. Like the details in the costumes and sets are really nice. Again, that's something that I know this isn't Hammer, but it kind of had that sort of Hammer vibe where there was a lot of like details in like costumes and sets and stuff. So, that all really shines here. And it does have a commentary track that, again, kind of like on rewatch helped me appreciate some elements. Even though I still kind of walked away feeling that it wasn't like it completely successful, but yeah, it's fine. If you like Peter Cushing, that's like the big sell for me. And it is really funny, the creature that they have. Like it's so ridiculous. I wish I could talk about it, but I don't want to spoil it. But
Yeah, I can't wait to see what this creature is. I'm gonna have to check this out.
yeah. um but I think it's like I said, it's decent. So we're gonna go off on a high note. There are elements that I liked, and I think that kind of does it for our show this week. But we again have a Clerks 3 digital code giveaway, and all you have to do to be entered is comment below and let us know what title that we talked about you're most excited for. And it's just that easy. You can win a Clerks 3 digital code. That's it. And definitely be sure to like these videos. Again, commenting is very helpful, and subscribe because we do this weekly, and GVN has a lot of great content daily, so you don't want to miss that. And as always, thanks for hanging out with us.